Hey everyone, thanks for joining us for what I'd like to think is maybe a new edition of the Fox 43 Capitol Beat. We hear from a lot of the lawmakers and legislators that we talk to about how it would be great to go into more depth, more detail, have a longer conversation about some of the issues that are taking place in Harrisburg and affecting you all across this great Commonwealth. And so we're going to try that right now. We're going to start this off with someone who is making news right now in Harrisburg for a big reason, and that is the possible legalization of recreational use marijuana. And that's why it's a pleasure to have Senator Mike Regan joining us this morning. He represents Cumberland County, York County, and in my opinion, the best dressed person in state government. Sir, thank you for joining us this morning.
Thanks, Matt. Thanks for having me.
Thanks
for the compliment.
Well, I mean, here's the thing, and listen, we'll get to marijuana in just a second. And I probably marijuana is going to be a main part of this conversation. We all know this. Part of the reason why I wanted to do this longer form version of Capitol Beat is to be able to have a conversation that allows for a little more personality. And in a 7-minute live interview, I can't spend a couple minutes talking about fashion. But man, have I always wanted to talk fashion. Like, when did that start for you? When did like men's fashion become a thing for you?
Oh, you're making it sound like I'm standing in the closet, like looking at peeling through suits, trying to figure out.
You're not, because I definitely think that.
When I was a deputy U.S. Marshal, I was pretty much in a bomber jacket and jeans and a t-shirt every day. So when I went to the legislature, I don't know, I guess it kind of clicked for me then. I noticed though, as I'm getting older, I'm getting more flamboyant. I think my shirts are brighter, my ties are brighter, shoes are different. I don't know what's going on there, but I don't. First of all, my stuff is.
You sound really uncomfortable talking about this.
It's not expensive stuff. I mean, trust me. I just try to get stuff that fits, and I try to stay in shape enough that that's my goal these days. I just turned 60. Is just to try to look halfway decent in a suit.
Okay, so I'm just gonna throw this out there. I need because you said what you're wearing is not expensive, and that's important because you don't need to spend a lot of money to look good. Your top, what are Mike Regan's top 3 fashion tips for men watching the Fox 43 Capitol Beat right now?
Make it fit. Get it tailored. Right. I've seen guys wear beautiful suits that hang on them and their pants are baggy or whatever. Make it fit. And I think mix it up.
Okay.
Mix up colors, mix up patterns. I think that's
all right.
That's a thing. And I don't know. I think get in shape. Clothes always look better on somebody who's in shape. I think.
Get it tailored, mix it up, get in shape. I can definitely work on the third one. Great. we wanted to have you on because
hold on though, Matt. Back up a second.
Okay.
Last time I was on the show, you were making me feel a little inferior because you were wearing I noticed you had a really sharp suit on, and you had the mix it up part going just right. You had a pattern tie and a pattern shirt on, which was making me look bad. So I punched up my act a little bit today, but you really can't see it.
Oh. Here's the thing. I remember that day because when someone who you respect from a fashion standpoint compliments you on your fashion, that's something you remember. So thank you for remembering that. And now it's on the record. I mean, listen, it's out there that Senator Mike Regan complimented Fox 43's Matt Maisel for what he wore that day. I get it all from my dad. Listen, you and my dad would have great conversations about this stuff because he works in retail and deals with a lot of like clothing companies, a lot like that, and I mean that's his thing. He loves fashion as well, so I get that all from him. A couple weeks ago, you brought forward legislation or put together the memo, the co-sponsorship memo to wanting to legalize recreation and adult use marijuana. And my first reaction, knowing what I know about you as a former U.S. Marshal, as a staunch conservative in the Senate, this is surprising. Why did that come about for you? What made you kind of go towards something that has really, up to this point, with the exception of Senator Laughlin, has been something that has been pushed strictly by the Democratic Party?
Well, I mean, I don't know if this may predate our uh, relationship, but I was the guy in the House of Representatives in 2014 who, I mean, I hate to take a lot of credit, but I mean, I was the one walking the hallways, changing people's hearts and minds on that. I think the discussions were more terse and more difficult back then. I think there was even more of a reefer madness kind of environment back then, just with medical marijuana. You know, times are changing. I think there was a lot of in my back of my mind, years ago was like, this could be a gateway drug. I don't think it's smart, but over time, you've seen other states, 18 other states legalize, and I got to see, Matt, the other side of it, the criminality of the drug trade, and you know, um, you see these cartels and gangs and organized crime making Fortune 500 money selling this stuff. And we're at a point now. I mean, there's a couple of facts I think that you can't argue. One is that there's a huge demand. You can get it basically anywhere, right? Illegally right now. You can get it basically anywhere. The cops are not arresting for personal use amounts anymore, hardly any. Prosecutors are not wanting to prosecute. It's clogging up the courts. It's causing problems. And it's $1 billion industry. So where's this money going? It's going to the people who cut people's heads off and hang them from bridges. That's where it's going. So that $1 billion could go to work for Pennsylvanians in a very big way. I'm just trying to get people to think about it. Like, this is not me abandoning my law enforcement roots. This is me, I think, enhancing my law enforcement credentials by saying, hey, look, we can. This is happening now without the revenue. Who's benefiting from the revenue? The bad guys. Let's bring the revenue into Pennsylvania and let's do good things with that money.
So where do you want that money to go? If there's a $1 billion industry out there by some estimates, I know a couple years ago, then Auditor General Di Pasquale put it at about 550 some odd $million a year. So about half the $1 billion, but that grows once we see nearby New Jersey has it legalized, New York has it legalized. So there's updated numbers on that. Where do you want to see that type of windfall, if it does get legalized, go towards helping the state?
Well, I didn't make up that number of $1 billion. It came from Illinois. They're
Okay.
Demographically similar to us.
Very demographically similar, yes.
Over $1 billion. And you mentioned New York and New Jersey. I think it's important also for me to mention that, like we have border bleed, folks going across the border to Delaware to buy booze, folks going across the border in Maryland to be a cheaper gasoline. We will certainly have border bleed. So if there are any issues that come with it, we're going to have those as well, because people will go into Jersey and New York to buy weed and come back to Pennsylvania to smoke it or eat it or whatever they're doing. And we won't have any of that revenue. And I like to say, it won't be a shame when Pennsylvania's money is paying for the roads and bridges in New York and New Jersey while we raise tolls on ours. So, I mean, I think these are all things we need to consider. What was your original question? I'm sorry, I got sidetracked.
No, I mean, just where do you want to see the money eventually go? And I think you just touched on that with some of the roads and bridges as well.
Yeah, I mean, the motor license fund has been raided by the state police. State police came to me at a point a couple of weeks ago and said what they really need to operate is $1 billion line item. That's difficult to do. So, I mean, I think it would be great. There's things that need to happen in big cities. Philadelphia is one of the worst, most violent cities in Pennsylvania. I think there needs to be some focused law enforcement on trying to stop the gun violence in Philadelphia. There's also, one of the things I hear from my colleagues and one of my guys who's partnering with me on this, Almond Brown, who is a Democrat from West Philly. He thinks it would make a big difference if kids had strong after-school programs. So I think that's something that the money can go towards. This is going to be a comprehensive bill when we finally get it out. It's going to cover a lot of those things, social equity, trying to make it so everyone can get into the business if they want to. And I think it's going to be a fair, smart, and the good thing is we have 18 other states to look to, trial and error, what works there, the best practicing. So Pennsylvania can put a bill out that's kind of setting the standard.
Have you given any thought yet as to kind of what would go into the enforcement of it? Like, for example, when it comes to driving under the influence now with alcohol, if if you get pulled over for DUI and you get convicted of a crime there, you have to put essentially an interlock system in your car, a breathalyzer. Have you given any thought to, how a marijuana related DUI would be enforced?
You're smart, Matt, because that's a bone of contention. We hear that a lot, especially from Republican members. So what we're doing currently is we have somebody who's doing the research in other states, how they're handling it. We're looking for a best practice. We're also looking to the DAs of Pennsylvania to see what their thoughts are, because the problem currently exists with medical marijuana as well.
Mm-hmm.
Like, for instance, we talked to a DA who said that they look for what he looks for is impairment. So if you get pulled over for something and you're suspected of being on marijuana, he wants the law enforcement agency to show actual impairment, through their body cams or whatever, because the human body loves marijuana, keeps it in there for up to 60 days. So you could test positive 60 days after using. So that's kind of the thing.
It's a big difference between that and alcohol. Alcohol, you wake up the next morning and that 0.08 is down to 0.01 or something like that. With pot, it's in your system for a long time. So I mean, that's another thing. I mean, have you guys talked about limits on how much could be in your system at any given point?
Well, look, we have asked the industry and we have asked our researchers to give us everything they can give us on that, because we know that's got to be nuanced. It's got to make sense, and it's got to be practical for Pennsylvanians, and it can't be overbearing, and it can't be unreasonable. So we need to, like with so much of making laws, you got to find that sweet spot,
Mm-hmm.
so everyone can live with, and I think we will.
And you mentioned kind of so that everyone can live with it, and I would venture to guess that the group that you want, that is going to make the group that you're probably having the most difficulty getting to live with this, are your colleagues in the Republican Party. How do you convince them to get on board with something like this?
Well, I mean, I don't think that I don't think that they've heard my pitch. We're getting around a little bit now. It's early, and I don't want to give them something that's half baked. I want to give them the full.
No pun intended.
A good one. I didn't think of that. But so I want to make sure that we're going to give them the full picture. But I think the law enforcement angle of it is the irony of taking the money out of the pocket of the gangs and the cartels and putting it into making our police agencies and making our Commonwealth stronger, safer, and better for all Pennsylvanians. I think is an interesting approach.
So here's the other thing that I was wondering about when I was thinking about this, and that's the you mentioned that there's time, but I feel like there is a clock on this, because the irony for you as a Republican introducing this is that there is a chance that if a Republican governor gets elected in 2022, that the next session, like if this doesn't happen this session under something that Governor Wolf said that he would sign, that if you wait until the potential of a Republican governor, well, there goes that window. So how much do you want to kind of fast track this so that it gets done between now and the end of next year?
Well, I wouldn't totally discount a Republican governor doing this. I mean, I agree. We have a governor right now who's saying he would do it, which would make it easier. But the bottom line is we have to get some Republican support behind it. And
it doesn't get out of the Senate. It doesn't get out of the House. And we saw with medical marijuana, it was one thing to get out of the Senate. It's a lot more difficult to get out of a 203-person chamber.
Yeah, but we did it. We got it. It took a lot of hard work and a lot of persuasion and a lot of evidence, but we got it done. And I think when if you're a good legislator, you're listening to the people in your district, and you're trying to find that, again, I'm going to say, a sweet spot between what you believe and what they believe and what they want, and go with it. And I think that the people of Pennsylvania, I think it polls at about 80%. I know in my district, which is a conservative district, amongst Republicans, 2 years ago we polled it, and it was at 62% in favor. I would have bet you that number is close to 70% now. So I think we're going to do some polling for members who are nervous about this, and let them know that it's okay, that their people want it. And if you factor in Democrats and independents in my poll, it gets to be a really high number. I think people realize that it's not being enforced now, and it's not a safe product. I mean, look, we have people dying in Pennsylvania of marijuana laced with fentanyl. They're lacing it with embalming fluid. I mean, that's the strangest thing. That was going on back when I was in law enforcement, and PCP, and all kinds of things that are dangerous. I mean, kids are experimenting all the time. Do you want your child experimenting with something that could be laced with fentanyl? I don't think so. We can make sure that Pennsylvanians are getting a very safe, tested product. I mean, the standard's been set in the medical marijuana business right now. We are making a really high quality, very safe product. That same thing should be available for people who decide they want to use marijuana.
I want to end the marijuana conversation on this, and it's a question I feel like I need to ask this, so you can respond any which way. When there is a legislation like this that is something that you mentioned, the polling numbers, this is something that the majority of Pennsylvanians kind of are in favor of. When Senator Laughlin introduced this, well, now he has an exploratory committee for a possible run for governor. So I'm wondering if you are doing this because you have interest in higher office, or even if not, do you have any interest in higher office in 2022?
I can't 100% say that that I won't run for something, but I will say this, that I will say that 80 to 90% chance I will not.
80 to 90% chance you won't run for governor or senate.
Run for governor or senate, yeah. Things change. I don't want to be one of those to say I'm definitely not going to, and then something changes, something happens which thrusts me into the race. But as of right now, I'm not running, and that probably will not happen. And this really has nothing to do. I mean, quite frankly, if I was going to run for governor or the Senate, announcing this before a primary would be stupid. Because it's the conservatives come out to vote in the primaries. It wouldn't be smart to do. It wouldn't be a smart political move. Maybe for a general election, but I mean, that's the honest answer I can give you. I'm probably not running for anything. If something changed, maybe I would. But as of right now, I have no plans to run.
What's that 10 to 20% birdie on your shoulder telling you?
Wait a minute, what? What is that?
You said there's 80 to 90% chance you're not doing this. So what is the 10 to 20%? That's kind of the little angel or devil on your shoulder. What's that telling you?
Just keep your powder dry, and don't close the door on it completely. Things change. If in the world of politics, a year is an eternity. So I mean, we'll see what happens. But I have no intentions at this point. I mean, I haven't done anything in that regard.
Got it. Know your time is valuable, and I know you're in session, so you're super busy. So we appreciate the time that you've given us today, Senator
Sure,
Mike Regan from Cumberland and York counties. Thank you for joining us on this new edition, hopefully a successful edition of the Fox 43 Capitol Beat.
Great, thanks, Matt. Appreciate it. Nice to see you.